Time to begin. So let's start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can once again gather with your church. We thank you for the encouragement and the comfort that we get from being together and fellowshipping. We thank you for your word, and as we open it today, we ask that you would help us to understand what it is that you want us to know and help us to apply it to our lives. These things we ask in your Son's name. Amen. Well, I hope you've been enjoying the series of lessons this summer. Bill Roberts had the idea of covering all the smaller books of the New Testament and having a different teacher for each book. So that's what we've been trying to do. I know it doesn't leave enough time sometimes to cover everything in a book, but we're getting a survey, I think, of the smaller books. And this morning, we're going to look at the smallest, 2 John. 2nd and 3rd John are the smallest books in the Bible. 2nd John is the smallest if you measure it by the number of verses. It only has 13 verses. But 3rd John is the smallest if you measure it by the number of Greek words, I understand. I didn't count them myself, but that's what I read. But even though they're small, they have some important things to say to us. Good things come in small packages, right? So let's just dive in here and read the first verse. The elder to the chosen lady and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all who know the truth. Okay, from earliest times, this has been a book that's attributed to the Apostle John, and even though he doesn't sign his name here, because of his style and the similarities to the Gospel of John and 1 John, it's been thought that he was the author. He calls himself the elder, but I don't think that's unusual. In 1 Peter 5:1, Peter calls himself a fellow elder. So I don't think that means this was someone else. And he's writing to the chosen lady and her children. As I was looking at different commentaries, there's not any agreement on if this meant an actual individual lady or if this was symbolic for a church. Seems like the older commentaries tended to think it was an actual lady. And they thought that because the word for chosen is electos, which could be electa, which could be a feminine name, or the word for lady is Kyria, which could be the name of a lady. It seems to me that it makes more sense that this is symbolic of a church, because he ends the letter saying, the children of your chosen sisters send their greetings. But I guess it doesn't really matter. What matters is what he's teaching us in the letter. The children, if this is a church, who would the children be? The members of the church. In 1 John, in 1 John 2:1, he says, my dear children, I write this to you so that you will not sin. So children could just mean the members of the church. And it would make sense to call a church a lady, wouldn't it? Is there any other passages that compare the church to a woman? Okay. The church is called the bride of Christ, and Ephesians in Ephesians 5:25 through 26, Paul writes, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless." So he calls the church her. Okay, I'm going to read the first 6 verses of 2 John, and I want you to pick out what you think are the most important themes that are mentioned more than once, and then we're going to talk about those. "The elder to the chosen lady and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth, which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, will be with us in truth and love. It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us. And now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one which we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. As you have heard from the beginning, his command is that you walk in love." What are the major themes that you see in this section? Okay, love. In a small letter, I think, the apostle would write in the briefest terms the most important things. And he said that this is the command that we've been given from the beginning, that we walk in love. That's the essence of the gospel, isn't it? Jesus said that all of the laws and the prophets hang on the commands to love God and to love our neighbor. So love is probably the most important theme here. Yes? Truth. He mentions it 5 times in the first 4 verses. And when we get to 3 John, I think he mentions it 7 times in 14 verses. So truth is something that he's really focusing in on, because he talks about people who are not teaching the truth in the second half of the letter. So we have love and truth. What else do you see here? Okay, grace, mercy, and peace. Those are very important, but they're only mentioned once, each of those. What's another one that's mentioned more than once in this section? Ben? Okay. Okay, the commandments are part of the truth, aren't they? But what are we supposed to do with the commandments? We're supposed to walk in them or be obedient to them. And that's mentioned a couple of times here. He's had great joy to find some of the children walking in the truth. And down in verse 6, and this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands, as you have heard from the beginning. His command is that you walk in love. Yes? Okay. Yeah, walk means the way you live. I think some versions use the word live. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good illustration. When you walk on a trail, you're following a trail. You're not going aimlessly anywhere. You're going in a direction. And when we obey God's commands, when we're obedient to them, we're going in a direction that He wants us to go. Well, as I was looking at this, I noticed that these three themes, truth, love, and obedience, are tied together in various ways. Look at yes. Oh, yes. That's right. And that's what we're going to look at, how closely these are tied, and how as Christians we have to have all three of those in our lives. Now let's go back through here. Look at verse 1. The phrase, whom I love in the truth. So love and truth are combined there. And in verse 3, he and these other Christians love this lady or church in the truth because of the truth. So they love because of the truth. And it has given me great joy in verse 4 to find some of your children walking in the truth. So there we have obedience and truth are linked together. And the command to love here in verse 5, we have, again, the obedience and the truth of the command tied to love. And in verse 6 also, and this is love, that we walk in obedience to His commands. So love involves being obedient. I thought it would help us to think about this if we thought about any one of these any one of these aspects of being a Christian isolated from the others. So let me look at some of those. What would obedience be without love? Think about that for a minute. What would obedience without love be? A what? A job? Okay. 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 Obedience would be kind of like a soldier. If it wasn't done out of love, though, turn to 1 Corinthians 13. We're going to be there for a couple of these, so. Yes, Bob? What now? Okay, the Pharisees are a good example, aren't they? They were very obedient to the law, but maybe they lacked in love, didn't they? Look at 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 3. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. So obedience could involve doing some good works, couldn't it? But what would it do for you? It says you would gain nothing. So you might be obeying the laws, but if you're lacking love, you're incomplete. What would truth without love be? Think about having the truth but no love. What would that lead to? Okay, be rules. Yes, Ben? Okay, it might be kind of harsh if you have the truth but you have no love. You might be a harsh person. Look at that 1 Corinthians 13 again, verses 1 through 3. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. So here's a person with great amount of knowledge or truth. He can speak in the tongues of men and angels. He has a gift of prophecy, can fathom mysteries and all knowledge, but he has no love. And it says that's not acceptable either. It says, I am nothing, even if I have all this truth and knowledge, if I don't have love. Turn to Ephesians 4:15. Ephesians 4:15 says, Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into him who is the head, that is Christ. He's telling us to speak the truth in love. What would speaking the truth without love be? Okay, all right. Obeying an order? Okay, Terry? Okay. Okay. Yeah, if we love someone, we're going to tell them the truth in a way that helps them, not in a way that hurts them. And that's a good point. Leather? That's right. Yeah. The Leather's saying we need to think about what we say, the consequences. Yes, Larry? Hmm. That's right. That's right. Yes, Ben? Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good, Beth. Okay. Beth's saying that sometimes people are very harsh in what they're saying, and it's not done in love. Ben? Okay. Yeah, we need to be able to take the truth. Rudy? Okay. Okay. So speaking the truth about God, the truth of God in love. Let's look at another verse that I think illustrates this. Galatians chapter 6. Galatians 6 and verse 1. Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently, but watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. So, what does it mean to restore someone gently? Isn't that what we've been talking about? You can go up to him and say, "You are a terrible sinner. You've just been sinning right and left. And I think you're going to hell." Is that restoring someone gently? No, so we need a balance of truth and love, not just truth. Okay. Think about this one. What would obedience without truth be? Okay. Okay? Um, okay. Okay. I just saying this goes back to the soldier thing. Obedience without truth. That could be just about anything, couldn't it? If you're not obeying the truth of the gospel, then you're being obedient to something else. Logan, did you have a thought? Okay. True. I'm not saying that this is all the book is about, but these are three important themes in the book. Yes, Bob? Okay. Okay. Right. Jesus criticized the Pharisees for following the rules of men, that they were being obedient to rules, but they weren't being obedient to the truth, God's truth. Ben? Okay. When I was thinking about this, I thought of the Nazis. They were the most obedient soldiers ever. They would fight to the death for what Adolf Hitler told them. So that's obedience without truth. They were obedient, but they weren't following the truth. And it could be a million different things. Anything that you're following other than the truth of the gospel. Okay, what would love without truth be? Okay, false love. Okay, okay. So love without truth. Look at 1 John 3:16. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. So Jesus teaches us what love really is. The scriptures teach us what love is. If we don't have the truth, then love would be something that isn't true. I think of Willie Nelson. that song that he sings, to all the girls I loved before, who wandered in and out my door. What is he talking about there? Yeah, he's talking about short-term physical relationships with women. And the world might call that love, but that's not real love. Larry. Okay, that's right. Ben? Mm-hmm. Right. It's caring about people and wanting the best for them. And that's what we're taught all through the New Testament. Yes. Well, no, Jesus said to love our enemies. Right. That's our first priority, is to love our brothers and sisters in the church. But we're taught other places to love everybody, even if there are enemies. Darlene? That- Yeah, that's a good one. Darlene was quoting the verse, "Do good to all men, especially to those of the household of faith." So we're supposed to love everybody, but yes. And and the truth of the scriptures teaches us that love isn't superficial, that love is something deep. Yes, Bob. Okay, thank you. Well, let's look at another one before we run out of time. What would truth without obedience be? What if you have the truth, but you're not obedient? What is that? What? Okay, useless. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's look at an example in Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, beginning in verse 42. Find it here. The Lord answered, "Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, 'My master is taking a long time in coming,' and he then begins to beat the men servants and maid servants, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. That servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows." So here's a servant who has the truth. He knows what his master's will is, but he's not obedient. Another word for a person that has the truth that's not obedient is a hypocrite, isn't it? Someone who says the right things, but he doesn't do them. Okay, the last one. What is love without obedience? What's that? No, we had obedience without love. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think you made a good point there at the beginning where you said, is that really love? Look at 2 John, well, we're in 2 John. Look at verse 6. 2 John in verse 6 says, "And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands." So I think it's impossible to have the love that the Bible talks about without obedience. You just don't have love. You might have some worldly type of love that the world thinks is love, but it isn't true love. Terry? Right. That's right. That's going back to the obedience without love, that you're keeping rules, you're doing doing the right things, but you don't have any love involved in them. Right. So, final verse, John 14:15. Oh, who? Oh, Logan? Sorry. Yell at me if I don't see you. Okay, so obedience is very necessary. Okay, John 14 and 15, and I guess we'll close on this. This is Jesus talking. If you love me, you will obey what I command. That's pretty clear, isn't it? That love requires obedience. If you don't have obedience, then you don't have love. So these are three major topics, and I realize they're not the only topics, but I think they're the ones that he's emphasizing the most, is truth, love, and obedience. And we have to make sure that we have all three of those in our lives, or our Christian life is going to be distorted. In fact, if you're missing one of those, it might not even be the Christian life at all. And if you look at some of the problems in the church, I think in some of the churches, it's maybe a lack of one of these characteristics in that church. There's a lot of churches that are loving. You go in and they make you feel welcome, but maybe they're not teaching the truth. On the other hand, there might be churches that are teaching the truth. They're right on as far as what God's teaching, but they're not a loving group. They don't make you feel welcome, and they're maybe harsh. And there may be churches that are loving and have the truth, but maybe they're not following the truth. Maybe they're lax in following God's commands. So gives us something to think about. We need to make sure that we have all three of those in our lives. Well, thank you, and we'll take up there next week.